what an amazing woman you are.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean,
Well,
Kodi is where he is because of you.
Oh my
thank
goodness.
you. I
So
don't
we
know.
should definitely tell people about that. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So as we were saying, Kodi,
Oh my
again, Happy New
gosh.
Year, right? So
Happy
I think
Year.
this week I found out that your mom, wonderful
Oh.
Tina, has her page. What is the name of what is the name of her page? Kodi Lee's mom, right? Is it Kodi
Kodi
Lee's
Lee.
mom?
Yeah.
So everybody go to Kodi Lee's mom and follow Tina Lee, who is a wonderful, wonderful person, mother, motivational speaker, right? And being a mother myself, right? I just you are a model, you are an inspiration. Just especially seeing old pictures of you and Kodi together and what you've done for Kodi over the years, it's just so moving, right? And I think it's just so inspiring, and no words can describe, right? All the things that a mother has to go through, right, to bring up a child, and everything you have accomplished, right, Kodi. I know that I was always there for you, right? So you're such a lucky person to have Tina, right, as your mom. Anyway, so let's get started, right? So go to Kodi Lee's mom and follow Tina's page. So last week, do you remember what we did, Kodi?
Oh yeah. What I did, huh?
What we did in the lesson.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Ooh. Ooh, they did these, huh? Oh my
We
goodness.
did the Fur Lee's holiday edition.
Holiday,
right?
yeah, huh? Holiday
It was
edition.
an arrangement, right, by Lee Blask.
Oh my
So
God.
then I was saying that is such a classic piece, right?
Classic.
It can be viewed as very easy, right? But
Right.
it also can be a very complicated little piece, right? There's so many
Wow.
elements built into it. So although technically it is not difficult, right, to
Ooh.
play it well, right, still requires a lot of maturity, a lot of good technique, right, and a lot of understanding, right, of what classical piano is all about. So
Oh
today
wow.
let's do that, right? Let's do a very detailed lesson on this classic, right, piano
Yeah.
piece,
Oh my
and
goodness.
really work in great detail on every single aspect
Wow.
of this piece. Okay?
Okay.
So now this is the original version, right? The one that was written by Beethoven.
The very least. Hallelujah. Ooh yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Ooh.
Wow. You practiced.
Wow.
After our session, right? I can tell you practiced. You're amazing, right?
Oh my
so now it's complete, right? The arrangement, you've done the arrangement total justice, right? You absolutely worked on all the different parts of that piece, right? We were saying basically the fur-release is a roundel form, but in between the sections, the arranger, kind of like puts in a little bit of holiday tune here and there, right? And each one, right, has a different style and different pattern, different accompaniment in the left hand, but you can still hear the holiday theme. But anyway, I can tell you worked on it, right? So today I wanted to do the original version of Beethoven's Fur-release, right? So that was the holiday version, which you totally have nailed, right? You understand all the different elements. So now we go back to Beethoven's original version, okay? So everything you played earlier, right, sort of is, of course, is there, right? But now we're gonna focus on the piece that Beethoven wrote in terms of technique, right? Like technique in particular, okay?
Yeah.
I noticed today, right?
Wow.
And that was very interesting for me. I didn't notice it before, but today I noticed. So you chose 4-3, right? For that opening figure. Thank you, Kodi, right? I have to say, I never thought of that, right? I always played it with pinky by myself, right? In the past. But just today I noticed you chose 4th finger. What a great idea.
Good idea.
What a great idea. So from now on, whenever I teach this piece, I'm going to use 4 and 3 because that actually is much more balanced, right? So I don't know what gave you the idea. You have a great instinct, right? It definitely falls under the fingers even better, right, than 5, right, for that opening gesture. This piece is a great piece to practice what I always tell people is so important in playing the piano. It's the idea of letting go, right? Letting go. So play these 3 notes, let go, right? Now I know that's a very hard aspect for you, right? Because you need reference, right, to find the sound. If possible, right? If possible, after you play the thumb, right, come up, right? Let your hand drip water. I used to say drip water, right? Come up from your wrist, so your fingertips are pointing down, right? Dripping, yeah. I wish I was there so I could hold your hand like I used to be able to do, right? When I lived in California. So imagine your wrist. There's a tie, right? There's a balloon. There's a little string, right? And there's a balloon, and the balloon is floating up onto the ceiling. So it's a very slow gesture, right? Because balloons don't just shoot up. Well, maybe some of them do. But imagine the balloon slowly floating up to the ceiling, okay? So come up from the wrist, right? But don't withdraw. Don't pull it towards your body. Simply up, okay? Simply up from the wrist. Don't close your fingers. Don't make a fist, right? So dripping water, very relaxed, right? Not from your shoulder, not from your elbow, only from the wrist. Like gently petting. Imagine you're petting a little kitten. Pet the kitten. So it's a very slow movement. Okay? So yes, it's better, right? Now remember, don't pull towards your body, up into the air, right? We are simply coming up into the air. It's better, right? We want to come up so it releases whatever tension, right? And then we start over, right? Come up, right? And then we start over, right? So that idea of coming up, okay, is important. And we were saying Beethoven did so great, right, with this accompaniment because this is the original first pattern, and then the second pattern is slightly different, right? So you do the octave first, and then you cross over, right? That in itself is a masterpiece, right? Because what you would think is this, right? But it's not what he wrote. So I love that, okay? And, right, like I said, you taught me something today, right? You taught me about using the 4th finger. Come up with the right hand, come up with the left hand, come up with the right hand, come up with the left hand. So it's like a conversation, right? Now in the original version, you repeat this. Right? So repeat.
Wow.
So this repeat, right, is important. It helps us to remember this very beautiful theme. And then same here. Now you did a two-note idea justice. And repeat this section too.
Wow.
The lift, think about the lift. Must be totally at ease. And then something different, right? So we'll talk about that part in a second. So I played it a little slower, right? So that you could hear the nuances that I did.
Wow.
But of course, it can go faster, right? The thing about this piece is that, and this is another interesting aspect, Beethoven never actually said how fast it should be.
Wow.
He didn't say allegro, which is fast. He didn't say moderato, which is medium speed. He didn't say andante, which is kind of what this piece is, which is walking tempo. He didn't use any of those common words to describe the tempo. That's very unique. Because usually he would put down a very specific word, right? Like I said, allegro, moderato, allegretto, adagio, right? Or andante, whatever. But here he did not, right? And I think it's because I really do feel he thinks this piece can be played at different tempos. It doesn't have to be just one tempo. It's how you feel, okay? So all he says is poco moto.
Poco moto.
You know what that means?
Yeah.
Poco moto, right? So poco is Italian for little. Little, right? So yeah, poco a poco means little by little, right? So little what? Little motion, right? Moto is motion or movement. So that's all he says, little movement, right? In other words, the piece wants to feel like it's moving along, right? But he never said whether it's fast or slow, right? Or medium. Because I think that's up to the performer, right? How you feel that particular moment.
Wow.
The piece could equally be valid if played faster than I did earlier, right? It could equally work. Right? I think that's too fast for me, right? If I could work. Right? And so on, right? But again, earlier I chose a slightly slower tempo, right? Because today is how I feel, right? Today the weather here is not, it's not raining, but it's a little bit overcast, right? So I feel a little certain expressiveness, right? For me today, right? So I play slower, but maybe a different day, I might want to play it faster, right? But that's an interesting to note, right? Is that he didn't say specifically how fast it should be. All he says is little movement. And little movement means different for everybody. Some people's idea of little movement is perhaps faster than others, okay? All right. So another interesting about this piece, I think we talked about last time, is every time the main theme repeats, it doesn't repeat exactly. Right? And that's another thing that makes this piece a masterpiece. So the beginning was just high E, right? And then it becomes there's another extra low E down there, and then it becomes D sharp, right? So it never is the same, right? Each time it repeats, and that gets confusing, right? So when some people try to memorize this piece, they get that confused, like which one is it, right? Anyway, you wouldn't have a problem with that, I'm sure, right? Okay, what else did I do? I don't know if you noticed, right? On the repeat, I brought out a different voice. So the first time, right, I did. Right? I sort of just played it a little bit more, kind of how everybody would play it, right? So da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, right? Da-da-da-dum. I brought out that that, right? That part. But then when I repeat it, I'll play it again, see if you notice what I do. I brought out the bottom part, right? Okay, this is how I feel today. Maybe I wouldn't want to do that the next time I play it, but today that just appealed to me, okay? All right. Another interesting thing to note, right, is that on this first page, at least in this edition that I'm looking at, which is 1950 Henley edition, Beethoven, I don't know if that was editors, but I'm pretty sure it's Beethoven. It only says pianissimo for this whole entire page. So again, he's leaving a lot of room for interpretation for the performer. That's quite unusual for Beethoven. Okay, he usually is quite specific. He usually is pretty detailed in his markings. He usually is what I call a control freak, right? He doesn't leave a lot of room for the performer to decide. He makes a decision, right? And he would take a long time to think about what he wanted, and then he would write it down. So there's no dispute there. In this case, though, he didn't. Okay, all I see is pianissimo. Okay, so that means there's a lot of room, right, for us to think about the dynamics. So that's why I say this piece can be as simple as you want to make it, or it can be as complicated as you want to make it, right? So how do we play? What do we do, right? What is a good dynamic plan for this piece? Well, the beginning, everybody plays rather quietly, right?
Nice.
And it can sound good just like that. You can make it so soft, right? And it's
beautiful.
There's a certain simplicity about it, right? You don't need to do very much. Or if you felt like it, you could have a slight crescendo, right? Slight crescendo and slight decrescendo. Right? And then more, right?
Nice.
Start.
Ooh.
Right? So there's so many possibilities, right? It's almost hard to figure out which is the one that I want to do, right? But I don't think I need to make a decision. That's why it's so wonderful. I think it can be just how I feel, right? And so every time I play this piece, it doesn't have to be the same. Sometimes I might just want to be quite straightforward and just let the music speak for itself. So I'm not going to do too much interpretation. And there's certain, that simplicity is quite, it's fine as it is, right? But another time, I might feel like being more expressive. What I would always try and do is when I repeat the section, I wouldn't usually repeat it exactly the same way, right? So when I repeat it, then maybe the second time I add a little bit more contrast, right? But most people, by the time they get to this section, will be louder, right? And that's quite logical because it's in a major key now, right? So we were in A minor, now it goes to C major, so it's high here, right? So usually that part is louder, right? And then back to the soft part, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Nice.
let's have you play it, okay? So we done a lot of talking, right, about speed, right? about dynamics, about perhaps thinking of different voices to bring out when you repeat a section. So let's hear your version of it.
Woohoo, yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about this section. Okay, so you definitely have all the notes already, right? But I just want to talk a little more in detail. Remember, today is a very detailed lesson on this piece because it's such a famous piece. Everybody wants to learn it, right? It's the one piece that beginners dream to play, right? Every beginner student, right? After the first few lessons or so, right? This is their dream piece to play, right? And they secretly all want to play this piece, but some of them are afraid to tell their teacher, right? Because they think the teacher might not say that they're enough, right, to play it. But it's definitely every beginner's dream piece to play. And because of that, there are many easy versions of this piece. There are many simplified versions of this piece. And sometimes in different keys even, right? Anyhow, but then when the student finally becomes good enough to play this piece, sometimes for various reasons they never come across it, right? So anyway, and some piano teachers do not like to teach this piece because it's played so much, it almost is like something they purposefully avoid, right? Because it's so common out there, and maybe they've taught it so much or they've heard it played badly so much that they don't ever want to hear it again. So some people do not like to teach this piece for that reason. I think it's a wonderful piece. I love to teach it. That's why I'm working on it, right? Because I think it's a wonderful little piece. It showcases so many things, and there's so many things to talk about, right? All right. So this piece, this section, right? This section is absolutely, in my opinion, what Beethoven is telling us. This is his way of saying Mozart is my idol, right? This is like a typical Mozart type of pianistic writing, right? Alberti bass was kind of, right? I mean, not quite Alberti bass, but because Alberti bass would be that, right? So he's like, yeah, I love Mozart, I love Alberti bass, but I'm gonna do it my way, right? So instead of right, Mozart would do that, da 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 da, right? So, and then right, something like that. But Beethoven, being Beethoven, he always has something original to do, right? To say, just like in the beginning, he did this instead, right? So he didn't use a true Alberti bass, but it's still a very classical, typical sonatina type of pattern, right? And then there's this most elegant melody on top of it. So this is a very Mozart type of style. And Beethoven loved Mozart, right? Mozart was his idol, right? Admired Mozart tremendously. So this is, I think, his homage to Mozart, let's call it. Right? So this is his way of saying, I love Mozart, right?
Yeah.
Right? So bring out the top, right? Of course, the beautiful melody, right? Do it on the beat, right? And I do finger pedal. Now you know what finger pedal is, right? Finger pedal is holding the pinky down, right? So we have some warmth, but slight pedal, right? The opening section has more pedal. This part you have to be more careful. This part you need to have more clean texture. So, right? I pedal that note, but that's it. I don't pedal anybody else, right? I pedal this note and this note, and then very technical here, right? Now here I did notice you avoided your pinky. Earlier I said it was a good idea to avoid the pinky, right? For that opening material, 4 and 3 was good. Here though, Kodi, I don't think you should avoid your pinky. Here the pinky serves, right? It gives us rotation, right? So here I absolutely don't think any other finger would work, right? So always you use pinky for that high note. 1 5 1 5 1 5 1 5, left right left right left right, right? Imagine you are rotating your wrist from left to right, from left to right, from left to right, right? So that's the technique that you need to play this part, right? So therefore that highest note is not possible, right, to be played by any other finger, in my opinion, right? It would not be efficient. So, and here, right, that's so glorious, right? After this is so satisfying, right, to go to that high C, right? And then we go to the A section. So let's hear this part again. And this, right, these can be, separated. So and then we return, right, to no idea. This always gets me, right? It's like after no idea, how many times is this? That's it. It's not. It's so tempting to do that, but once again, Beethoven gives us the slightest difference. Okay? So in an earlier version, after you did this, remember, it was longer, right? Now it's not, right? Anyhow, you play this section now, please.
Nice.
So remember, this is a very Mozart section. Good job. Good. Let's talk about that. Okay. All right. Well done, Kodi. So I am so impressed. You remember last time I had mentioned, right, that this is just single note. Right, you remember, because you at first thought, right, it was in octaves, but it's actually just single A. So you remembered, right?
Wow.
That's wonderful. Okay, so this is the section, right, that tells us, oh my goodness, this piece is definitely a Beethoven piece. Right? So this is the dramatic, right, bold part of it, Beethoven, right? Right? This harmony, for example, right, this diminished seventh and this tonic pedal, right? And listen to that dissonance, right? This is Beethoven's way of saying life, right, although not fair, it's not gonna get me, right? I'm going to, right? I'm not gonna give up, right? I'm going to continue, right? And I'm not gonna let whatever I feel is unfair, right, in life get me, right? He always, right, fights through, right? So I feel like this is a very typical Beethoven emotion right here. Okay, so
Wow.
I want to talk also about, I forgot earlier to mention, in the main section, right, I have come across two different, right, ways that this piece is played, right? So I didn't, in the Henley edition here, I didn't play it because it doesn't convince me, right? So I'm talking about the A theme where you go. Right? That's how I play it. But if I do this edition, if I'm following what this edition tells me in front of me, right, by Henley, it actually is a D, right? So. Can you believe it? That note is a D, right? In this edition. But not in all the editions. I think it's about 50-50. Some editions print an E, right? Some editions print a D, such as right? I still am not convinced that it's a D, right? So I choose E. But just want to mention it in case some people wonder, right? That why is it that they have learned it as a D and we are not playing it as a D? I'm letting you decide. Okay, you can choose whichever one you want, right?
Wow.
So, da, 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 or da, 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 da. Okay, it's up to you. Now, coming back to the C section, right? Again, difference of opinion. Some people are very pedantic about this. They don't play the repeated note with the same finger. So in this edition, it says 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1. Right? I feel that's very busy and very fussy, right? But there's a reason for it also, especially if it's if you're playing on a piano that doesn't have a very good action. Sometimes playing the same finger, the note gets stuck, right? It doesn't come out. So that's the main reason, right, for changing the finger. By changing the finger, right, the note doesn't get stuck, okay? And also it lets, the finger relax, right? So you're not just using the same finger. You're letting it relax before you use it again. Whatever I do, though, I wouldn't use pinky over and over. That's like a bad idea, right? That's not a good finger to use over and over. So I personally just stick with 3, right? I feel like it's not that fast, right? If I play it very fast, right? If I choose a very fast tempo, then the 3 2 1 is a good idea, right? So fingering also is dependent on how fast you play the piece. But earlier, as I said, Beethoven never said this piece was fast anyway, right? So for me, this piece is not that fast. So therefore, I don't think my finger gets tired doing the same note over and over. But I definitely I'm not still in my hand either, right? So that's how I keep it relaxed, right? I know you cannot see my hand, but I'm not stuck in one position and just pushing the finger down, right? That's never what I do. I don't just push the finger down, push the finger down, push the finger down. It's almost of a rebound, right? So my wrist is flexible, okay? But I just want to mention it so that if some people choose to do, right, the changing finger, it's fine, right? Whatever works for you, okay? But I choose a more relaxed approach, right? And then double note. And this is the only octave right here, right? And then back to single note. And here's the end of the tunnel, right? There's a ray of sunshine. And I always talk about these two measures. Again, it shows us Beethoven is a master composer. He didn't write these two measures the same way. Now, which two measures am I talking about? This measure and this measure, right? He very well could have, right? So what did he write? He wrote quarter note with an eighth rest, and then only an eighth note with 2/8 rest.
Wow.
So that's very different, right? So therefore, the effect he is after is that this is longer, you have a shorter silence, and then this is shorter. You have a longer silence. That's almost opposite of what I would thought, right? I would have thought. So being together would make a lot of sense, right? I mean, being the same would make a lot of sense. But he doesn't say that, right? He went out of his way to draw a tail to make that second one an eighth note, and then he had to draw a separate eighth rest in both hands. That's like 5 more seconds of work, right?
Wow.
I always say that's 5 seconds of his life, right? That he cannot get back by having to write the notation is the way he did it. So, but that must be because that's what he wants. Okay?
Wow.
So make sure you do that, right? So longer and shorter, right?
Wow.
Okay? So not long and long, right? They are different, right? This is the end. This is not as significant.
Wow.
Right? And then of course we have our arpeggio, right? So this piece once again has everything. It has scale passages, it has rotation, right? It has repeated note, right? And it has arpeggio, right? It's almost like an etude, right? He could have called it an etude. Right? Because that's what an etude is. It focuses on many little different elements, or some etudes focus on one specific, two specific element. But this is basically an etude. It's like it has a lot of technical patterns, right? That a good pianist would have to have. Okay. Anyway, let's have you play this section one more time.
Wow. Woohoo. Yeah.
Good job. Okay, and then we are back to the beginning again, right? Okay, let's talk about that a little bit more, and then we can finish the piece and wrap it up. So, what did I say earlier? It's the ultimate piece that has every little aspect, right, involved. We had scales earlier, right? That's a little scale, right? Then we have this rotation thing, right? Then we have repeated note down, and then we have arpeggio, right? And then what do we have? Chromatic scale, right? Like I said, all of these are found in a typical piano exam, right? In a typical piano exam, you would have to demonstrate that you can play all these things, okay? So, what was I gonna say? Oh, the fingering again, right? Because I noticed there was the slightest little imperfection when you played, right? And it's because, once again, there are so many ways to finger this part. I think everybody would do 1/5 here. That's non-disputable, right? In the Henley edition, it says 2/5, 1/5, but I don't think that's a good idea, right? I do not like the 2/5 here. The handy edition says 2-5, right? So I've seen people do 1-5 followed by 1-4. And I'm quite tempted to do that myself, right? So, right? Except whenever I do that, just out of instinct, right? Because the note is next door, right? That's kind of like an instinct to do. Whenever I do that, I also notice the note is not as beautiful, right? The tone is not as good. So what is the best? I think just stick with 1-5, right? Because it's basically just doing this, right? You see, 1-5, 1-5, 1-5, 1-5. But at the end, you add another note. So now, this is my ultimate fingering, right? I think that's the easiest. That gives the hand the least stress, right? Any other finger involves some type of stretching, some type of maneuvering. I've even seen fingering that goes like turn over and do that, right? But I think all of that is unnecessary, right? The simplest finger is just 1-5, 1-5, 1-5, 1-3-5, and then I just stick with 1-5, 1-5, 1-5, 1-5. Now, some people would think that's not a great idea because they want to go out of their way to play legato, like in this edition, right? It says 1-4, 2-5, 1-5, 1-4, right? So that's a very legato approach. But in my opinion, none of that is necessary because we are pedaling, right? Now, if you happen to play on a piano that has a broken pedal, right? In other words, you cannot use the damper pedal at all because it's broken, then yeah, you probably would have to, right, do some adjustment, right? So you can play the melody legato. But the piano does not have a broken pedal. Piano does not have a broken pedal. So it's not necessary to try to connect those notes with your fingers. So see how it feels if you simply use 1-5, right? Basically for all of this, right? All of them is an interval of 6. So let's just stick with the same finger, right? I think that's the easiest. And when you get to this harmony appreciate, right? It's like it was so dark and so cloudy, you think there was no way it's gonna turn into a sunny day, right? No way whatsoever. But then, hey, wow, there's a ray of sunshine, right? So the storm is gonna dissipate. Or is it, right? Or more storm will come. So the way I do this, I used to, right, when I was younger, I used to feel like it would be a complete crime to break it, right? When I was a student, I went out of my way to make sure that I do not break any of this, right? So it's all one big long legato. I still sometimes do that, right? But now I'm not stressing myself out as much. I let the pedal do a lot of the work for me now. So, right? I almost took a split second, right? And release my hand, right? Right? And start over. But definitely this I start over, right? So depends again on how fast I play. If I play slower, right? I start fresh, right? But if I play faster, then I don't have time, right? So then I definitely do legato still. But what I mean is, do not stress yourself out, right? So if you feel like you need that slightest little moment, right, to make sure you don't have any tension whatsoever, especially right here. That chromatic is new anyway, right? So at the very top, right? So it's just the way I interpret it. Some people might feel, right, that is all part of that thing still. So it'll be more seamless. I'm giving you ideas, right? I'm giving you alternatives. At the end of the day, right, you can decide what you want to play, okay? And once again, Beethoven only wrote pianissimo, but how is it possible? How is it possible? I think it would be too boring, right? To keep it all pianissimo. So a very common interpretation is crescendo, of course, right? So and then this is the loudest moment, and then you decrescendo, right? That would be a very common interpretation. You don't have to do that, right? So you can. Now we should be soft here because he says pianissimo, right? Now as to how much you crescendo, if at all, right, is up to you. It may even sound quite unusual if you decrescendo, if that's even possible, right? So softer, right? And then right, like that, right? So this becomes the most delicate, right? So the top of the chromatic scale is the softest, right? And then you crescendo, right? So that's a possibility, right? But like I said, most people, go really big on the top, right? And then the decrescendo. The more I think about it, the more I don't like that, right? So I feel like it's resolving, right? The conflict is resolving. So I kind of, and I think that's why he didn't write it, right? Maybe he was also not quite sure, right? Which one is best. So he thought, okay, maybe I'll just leave it. And once I have come to a decision, I'll, come back and write it down later. Or he feels it could work both ways, right? There isn't just one way. So he didn't write it. So you decide, okay? You decide what you want to do with this passage. Okay? Your turn. So let's pick up from here, right? Okay?
Oh yeah.
There you go, right? So, how earlier I mentioned that there's two different ways to play this figure, right? Or, right? So, in one edition, I've come across, I think it's by Alfred, right? The publisher is Alfred. They printed E for every single one of them. Every single one of them, every time you have that, except for the final one. So I thought, gee, I think I like that, right? So previously, right, the way I play it anyway is I play E, right? So all of them, let's just go from the chromatic scale, right? Now do some sort of a winding down. So E. Now this is the last one. Right, so only the last one I chose to do the D, right? And also I slow down quite significantly because I want to tell people there is no more now, right? This piece is in rondo form. You could very well have another section that comes after this, but I want to tell people that this is it, right? The journey is over. So I slow down quite a bit. And I also sit on this D for quite long because I want to tell people, hey, listen, did you notice? I changed the note now, right? Because I always play E earlier, but now it's a D. And then this final note, again, differences, right? I've seen it printed as one note. I've also seen it printed as two notes. Right? So you have a C and an A. It's hard to decide which one is better, right? I think there's something to be said about being just very simple. And ending with only A, right? A here, A there. No one else, right? So now that I think about it more, I think I like that more. So just a very lonely finish, right? It's like nobody else but A, right? A is on its own, not harmonized by anything else. I quite like that. But like I said, I've also seen some editions printing a C to go with that A. Right? So you have a harmony. Right? Now, whichever one you choose, what is very important, at least in my opinion, is that you play that as quiet as you possibly can. Okay? And that final note has to be so controlled, right? It has to be just the right sound, right? Not too loud, extremely quiet, but you can actually still hear it. Okay? Well, so that was pretty much a very detailed lesson on this piece, right? I wanted to do that because it's one of my favorite pieces to teach, of course, right? You can already play it. You learned it on your own before, but we never had a very detailed lesson on it, right? Last time we did the holiday version. Today we did the original version. We talked about all the different elements of it, right? And how there are many different types of technical patterns involved, right? So it is the ultimate piece for everybody who learns to play the piano, right? Everybody should play this piece. Okay?
Cool, huh?
So I hope you enjoy the lesson, and I'll see you next time.
Alrighty.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good week.
You too.